Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Jennifer Crumbley. Jennifer Crumbley was recently found guilty for involuntary manslaughter related to the school shooting committed by her son, Ethan Crumbley. James Crumbley, her husband, is on trial next. Before we get started with this analysis, I wanted to remind you of a couple of things. One, as always, this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. And in addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. The first thing we're going to be looking at today is her behavior and her body language as the verdict is being read. Let's jump right in.
On count one of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count two,
So you'll notice immediately she leans forward when the verdict is read. This is oftentimes what people do when they lose confidence. I talk about that in other videos. So immediately see, when she loses confidence, when she's read the verdict, her body goes forward, her eyes are closed. That's exactly what you would expect when somebody has a verdict like this read.
involuntary manslaughter. On count two of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty.
So as you can see, she's blowing through her mouth right now. The way she puffs up her cheeks, we do this when we feel exasperated. So right now, eyes closed, heavy breaths. This is a look of exasperation.
Of involuntary manslaughter. On count three as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah.
And as we've talked about in other videos, her eyes are closed right now, and she tends to do this quite a lot. We close our eyes oftentimes when we're hearing things we don't like. It's almost like a way to block the information from coming in. She's obviously hearing it. She's obviously receiving it. But in essence, it's a way to try to tone down the intensity of all that information coming in.
St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count four of involuntary...
You see her rubbing her lips together, doing this. We do that to calm ourselves down. There's lots of nerves in the lips. So when we're feeling stimulated or we're feeling overstimulated, we do that to help ourselves feel calmer.
Against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Thank you for allowing me to see it.
And as you can see, she opened her eyes after it was done being read. People really do try to block thoughts and feelings in this way to feel less overstimulated when they're being read something like a guilty verdict or when something like this is happening.
Jury seat number one, was that and is that your verdict?
Considering April 9th at 9 o'clock in the morning, of course.
One thing we're not seeing is a lot of outward emotion right here. Clearly, she had someone, the verdict was being read, and that would all be expected. But right now, she's not looking around trying to connect with family or friends or community that are sitting in the gallery. We oftentimes see that when verdicts are being read. But there's nothing like that today. She just seems to be receiving this information and not expressing a ton of emotion.
Sentencing with that.
That should be fine, Judge. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
April 9th at 9 o'clock is fine, thank you. All right.
So right now they're talking about when the sentencing will be. That's all they're discussing, just to give you some clarity about what she's reacting to.
I'm going to ask that everyone remain seated while the defendant is taken out of the courtroom. Right?
All rise. You may be seated.
Once again, she's looking down. Her head isn't fully slumped, but there really is a difference between when people look up and they feel confident versus when they're looking down and they feel more defeated. So now we're going to watch just a little bit more from the trial. I'm just going to show you some body language that we observed, but that I didn't point out in my other video on Jennifer Crumbley. I thought it might help you understand some of what the jury probably interpreted.
You sent a text to your son that says, "You can talk to us." Why did you send him that?
After I left the meeting, I knew that he was sad about things, and I just wanted to let him know that he can talk to us.
Now, I didn't point this out in my last video, even though I showed this clip, but I want you to pay attention to this. Watch her left shoulder, our right side, but her left. Watch this right here.
It says, "You can talk to us." Why did you send him that?
After I left the meeting, I knew that he was sad about things, and I just wanted to let him know that.
So if you pay attention to that shoulder, she would only lift one shoulder up. It was a one-shouldered shrug. And oftentimes when we think of honesty and we think of openness, we think of two-shoulder shrugs. The reason being is that that's sort of a levitating behavior. It's very vulnerable to lift both shoulders up and open your body up. But when we observe people doing one-shoulder shrugs, we tend to think of it as dismissive or in some ways maybe that they're hiding something. Not saying that's necessarily the case, but unconsciously we tend to interpret it that way. So as she's talking about this, as people are observing her, they're likely to feel that there's something that's off about what she's saying because of this body language. Watch this one last time and then we'll keep going.
After I left the meeting, I knew that he was sad about things, and I just wanted to let him know that he can talk to us about anything. Just wanted to make sure I opened that door. Just let him know that we're there for him. We love him.
So as you can see, there's a lot of defensive posturing here. There's the one shoulder shrug. She squints her face a little bit. She kind of shows one side of her mouth. All of this is going to feel uncomfortable when people are watching it. It's not going to make them feel at ease about these answers. So does that mean that she was being dismissive and defensive and all these things? Not necessarily, but that's oftentimes unconsciously how we interpret that behavior. Whether it's accurate or not, that's what we see. We're going to watch one more segment that I didn't show on my other video that I think probably had a very significant impact on the jury. Now, that's just my guess. Maybe it didn't. But to me, of all the statements she made, this is one of the most challenging.
In some of the messages the prosecution admitted, you say that you failed as a parent. Are you a failure as a parent?
I don't think I'm a failure as a parent, but at that time, I guess I felt bad that Ethan was sad at those things, and I guess I don't know, I just felt like I failed somewhere.
So this, in a lot of ways, there's a lot right here. But I think that when she is not acknowledging her role, when she's saying that she didn't fail as a parent, that Ethan was sad, to use that term, a word that she has used a lot, it's such a profound understatement for what he was dealing with, to suggest sadness. Once again, I think the jury probably hears this and recognizes that is such a minimization of what Ethan went through. He wasn't sad. That doesn't even begin to describe what he was going through. And the fact that she frames it like that as, I didn't do anything wrong, essentially, and Ethan was sad, that's when she looks at the jury. Watch the body language right here.
I guess I felt bad that Ethan was sad at those things, and I guess
So she's looking away from the jury when she's talking about her role in it, saying, no, I wasn't a failure as a parent, but then saying he was sad. So in other words, saying, this is what was going on. This is what I want you to pay attention to. That's when her head shifts towards the jury. That's when she wants to look at them directly, when she talks about what he's done and how he's feeling, not when she's talking about her own responsibility or lack thereof in this situation.
I felt bad that Ethan was sad at those things, and I guess I don't know, I just felt like I failed somewhere. I don't really know how to describe it. It's just that point in time, I just kind of felt like somewhere I failed.
Do you believe there was anything, do you believe that you knew or had reason to know your son was a danger to anyone else?
No. As a parent, you spend your whole life trying to protect your child from other dangers.
So as she's trying to relate to the jury, saying you're trying to protect your child from other dangers, which is true. I think most of us that are parents do want to protect our kids. I think that is a relatable point. But her smiling in the context of this as she says this may not sit well with everybody as they're watching her talk about this, given the context of everything. I understand the purpose of smiling when we're talking, but I'm not sure that it would have landed as well given the context of everything.
Life trying to protect your child from other dangers. You never would think you have to protect your child from harming somebody else.
And as she's saying, you never would think you have to protect your child from harming somebody else. Eyes are closed that whole time. That's a difficult thing for her to say.
You never would think you have to protect your child from harming somebody else. That's what blew my mind. That was the hardest thing I had to stomach, is that my child harmed and killed other people.
And you could hear her voice trails off a little bit. It gets quieter when she's talking about the fact that he killed other people. And it's because you're trying to hide. It's not a fact that she probably wants to say, that she wants to remind people of. Obviously, it's the central theme of this trial, but it doesn't change the fact that it's oftentimes when you're the one that's testifying, you don't really want those words to have to come out of your mouth. So they do come across a little bit more quietly than the rest.
That was the hardest thing I had to stomach, is that my child harmed and killed other people.
Do you believe there were things you were thinking at the time, I should do this, but I'm not doing it? Do you look back and think that?
No, I don't. I mean, of course I look back after this all happened, and I've asked myself if I would have done anything differently, and I wouldn't have.
So that line right there, I would be shocked if that, of every statement she made, did not have one of the biggest impressions on the jury. She doesn't say that with sadness or any sort of remorse. She clearly says, I wouldn't have done anything different, which is mind-blowing.
Do you believe there were things you were thinking at the time, I should do this, but I'm not doing it? Do you look back and think that?
No, I don't. I mean, of course I look back after this all happened, and I've asked myself if I would have done anything differently, and I wouldn't have.
So we'll go ahead and stop here. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of the body language I didn't point out in the last video. In addition to that, it gives us some better idea of the body language we watched during the verdict. I know this has been a very emotionally charged trial for a lot of people, so ultimately I'm not surprised that the jury came back with a guilty verdict. I do think that the idea that somehow that this is going to lead to all sorts of unjust arrests and parents being held to a standard that they shouldn't be is highly unrealistic, frankly. If there are other aspects of this case that you want me to cover, please let me know in the comments below. In addition to that, I am currently covering the Courtney Clenny case. I'm working on videos right now that I'm going to be releasing soon. So if there are other people that you want me to analyze, or there are other things in the news right now that you want me to take a look at, as always, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.